From April 11th to May 2nd, 537 BC, Daniel fasts from meat, wine, and anointment due to upcoming war being told to him. On May 2nd, 537 BC, the sage has a vision while with some men by the Tigris. He sees a man dressed in linen wearing a belt made of fine Uvas gold. His body was like beryl, his face looked like lightning, and his eyes like fiery torches. His arms and feet were the color of burnished bronze, and when he spoke, it sounded like the roar of a crowd. While the men couldn't see the spiritual manifestation, they felt a sense of holy fear and fled to hide themselves nearby, while Daniel was left frozen with holy fear and reverence. He fainted and was pulled to his feet by the spiritual man. He said to the sage, "Daniel, you are a greatly loved man. Now pay attention to the words I am saying to you, and stand upright, for it is to you that I have been sent now." Daniel was told that the man was withheld from seeing the sage for 21 days by a powerful demon in Persia, but was helped by the prince Michael to overcome the demonic being. However, after the vision, the man says he will return to fight the demonic being with Prince Michael. 4 Persian kings are foretold to arise, the last of which will be far wealthier than the others. At that time, when he has grown powerful, he will attack the kingdom of Greece. Soon another will arise who will rule a vast kingdom, which will be broken up and divided to the 4 winds of the heavens as soon as he begins to rule. During the third war of the Diadochi, Pharaoh Ptolemy I was attacked in Syria by Antigonus. During the course of the war, Antigonus left his son Demetrius to fight Ptolemy and Seleucus should they invade. At Gaza, Demetrius is defeated by the Egyptian dynasty. Seleucus went east to secure his former province of Babylon. In 311 BC, with the peace treaty between Antigonus, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, and Cassander, the war continued between Antigonus and Seleucus until the eastern provinces were yielded to Seleucus. By the end of the war, and with the murder of the Macedonian dynasty, Cassander was left to rule over Macedon and the Thessalonians. Lysimachus was left to rule over Thrace. Antigonus was left to rule over Western Asia Minor, Syria, and Phoenicia. Seleucus was left to rule the eastern provinces, amounting to Eastern Asia Minor, India, Assyria, Babylon, and Persia. And Ptolemy was left to rule Egypt and Cyprus. The official Seleucus of the Ptolemaic dynasty has now gained a great dominion over his own. Seleucus the first, Nicator's grandson, Antiochus II Theos, had fought the Second Syrian War with Antigonus II Gonatius and Ptolemy II Philadelphus. The war concluded with Antiochus divorcing his wife and marrying the Ptolemaic princess Bernice, sister of Ptolemy III. After Antiochus II died, Ptolemy III invaded Syria and began the Third Syrian War. By the winter of 246 BC, the Levantine coast up to Antioch is now under Ptolemaic control. After finding that his sister and nephew had been murdered, he turned east and conquered Babylon by early 245 BC. As loot, he took with him 73 trillion 500 million and $120 worth of gold and the statues of the Babylonian gods to Egypt. Seleucus II invaded Babylon, and by 244 BC, Antioch and Syria came back under his control. In 241 BC, peace is established with the Nahr al-Kabir which is river, being the boundary between the two kingdoms. Seleucus II had to deal with a separatist party led by one of his sons. Seleucus III, after succeeding his father for 2 years and failing to continue the war in Pergamum, he was succeeded by his brother Antiochus III, who captured Media and Persia and turned to Syria and Egypt. As the chaotic situation in Ptolemy IV's reign festers, Antiochus III invades in 219 BC and captures Seleucia, Perea, as well as cities in Phoenicia. At the Battle of Raphia, Ptolemy IV defeats Antiochus III as Egypt begins to decline from inside. After Ptolemy IV dies, his son Ptolemy V rules. A rival kingdom was set up in Upper Egypt in 205 BC by a native pharaoh. At Paneum, Ptolemy's general is defeated by Antiochus III, ending the Ptolemaic control of Judea. By 198 BC, the first phase of the Egyptian rebellion was squashed, only for another to begin in another town in Upper Egypt. This latter rebellion was squashed in 196 BC. As Antiochus III marches to secure the remnants of the Ptolemaic exclaves and independent Greek cities, he finds himself on the radar of Rome. In an effort to have peace, he gives his daughter Cleopatra I Syria to Ptolemy V in marriage. This marriage doesn't help in Antiochus III's quest or conquest. Antiochus III turned his attention towards the areas of Asia Minor and Greece. During the Roman-Syrian War, Antiochus III found himself at war with the Roman Empire. He was helped by Hannibal, the famous general from Carthage, but a Roman general, Lucius Cornelius Scipio, defeated Antiochus III in Greece. Antiochus planned to humiliate Greece, but was humiliated instead. He returned to his former regions, having lost all that he gained, was forced to pay $49,428,960 to Rome, and died shortly after. Seleucus IV succeeded his father in 187 BC and replaced his brother Antiochus IV with his own son as a political hostage in Rome. In 175 BC, one of his advisors killed him. Antiochus IV was succeeded by his brother with the aid of the Pergamon and the murder of Antiochus, the son of Antiochus IV. In 173 BC, he pays the remaining portion of the tribute due from the terms of the Treaty of Apamea. This tribute called for $13,534,120 yearly for 12 years after the initial $49,428,960 was paid by Antiochus III. Due to some of the predecessors paying and others not, Rome forces him to pay the remaining tribute. In 170 BC, the regents of Ptolemy VI declare war on Antiochus IV, and demand that Syria be returned to Ptolemaic sovereignty. Antiochus IV invades and conquers all of Egypt except for Alexandria and captures Ptolemy VI, who becomes a puppet king for Antiochus IV. Antiochus VIII, Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra II, upon withdrawal of Antiochus IV, rule as co-regent with their brother Ptolemy VI. Antiochus the Fourth keeps Pelusium as his possession. Egypt replaces the regents with Comnenus and Cineas, and Antiochus the Fourth invades again in 168 BC, and as before, he controls all of Egypt except Alexandria. However, this time an old friend meets him near Eleusis. When he was a prisoner in Rome, Antiochus IV had made friends with Gaius Populus Leonidas. This meeting, though, is on a political diplomacy mission. At the time when Antiochus approached Ptolemy and meant to occupy Pelusium, Cassius Publius Leonidas, the Roman commander, greeted Antiochus IV by handing him a letter which was from the Senate of Rome and told him to read it first. Antiochus was taken aback by this meeting, but read it. In the document, the Senate of Rome stated that he must abandon Alexandria or be at war with Rome. Upon reading it, Antiochus IV decided to have a moment with his officers to figure out what he should do. The Roman senator simply draws a circle around Antiochus and says, "Before leaving this circle, you must give me your answer so I can take it back to Rome." Without hesitation, unfortunately, is what the senator wanted, but Antiochus, after taking some time, decided that it would be best to follow what Rome's demands made him to do. Upon this, the senator greeted him warmly, and a fixed number of days were allowed for him to leave. But Antiochus IV was deeply hurt by this. Eventually, the senator from Rome sailed to Cyprus, wishing to lose no time in expelling the Syrian troops that were on the island. When they arrived, they found Ptolemy's generals had been defeated, and that the affairs of Cyprus were generally a topsy-turvy state. They soon made the Syrian army retire from the country and wait until the troops take ships for Syria. In this way, the Romans saved the kingdom of Ptolemy, which had almost been crushed. However, Antiochus had other plans after being so blatantly disrespected. Jason, who was the high priest at the time in Jerusalem, built a gymnasium, and he created a Greek-style polis and abandoned the rulings of Antiochus III in relation to Judean policy of the Judeans regarding Torah. Menelaus bribed Anacotis IV to replace Jason with himself as Kohen HaGadol in 171 BC. Menelaus forfeits the sacred vessels of the temple. Ananias III rebukes Menelaus and flees to defame a supper at Antioch. Menelaus has him killed outside the suburb. This caused opposition in Jerusalem, which Menelaus complained about. It was relayed to Anacotis IV in such a way as to make it seem that the people of Jerusalem were agents of the Egyptians and were against him only due to him being opposed to their party. This results in a massacre of innocent people who proved that Menelaus had desecrated the temple and broke Torah. This sounds so much like many politicians today. In 167 BC, pagan worship was being enforced on the penalty of death. Anacotis IV erected an altar and idol of Zeus in the area where the brazen sea of the first temple had stood, and had pigs sacrificed upon the altar of burnt offering, thereby desecrating the Beit HaMikdash Hashini, or the second temple. Furthermore, he outlawed Judaism and all traditions and customs. Many holy people who were devout Jewish men and women became martyrs rather than bow to the orders of the tyrant. Eventually, Greek forces came to each city to make them obey the order and practice idolatry. This will be covered in the upcoming Maccabee series in greater detail. The series is projected to come out later this year. This king is a concept for now, which will be detailed in a greater magnitude in 632 years to a man in exile on the peninsula island of Patmos. As there was no sense of an antichrist in his day, the Eternal One elected to use a term that Daniel would better understand. For example, he would have understood the terms minister, lord, vizier, satrap, but not president, representative, commissioner. Furthermore, there was no reason for Daniel to perceive that there would be a proposed alternative to Hamashiach, as the aforementioned man on Patmos would learn of. It is at the time of this unparalleled troubled time that Prince Michael will arise and defend the people whose names are written in the book. The dead will arise for eternal judgment. It is stated that those who can discern will shine like stars, and those that turn many to righteousness will shine like eternal stars. The sage, though, is told that the prophecies are to be kept safely until they begin to unfold. It is prophesied that travel and technology will increase and evolve. As the vision fades into the present again, Daniel sees two men in white standing on the banks of the river, opposite of each other. One of these men asks the man in linen who was above the water for the benefit of the sage, "How long will these wonders last?" The reply confused the sage and compelled him to ask what the outcome of these things will be. The sage is told that in 1,290 days after the regular burnt offering is taken away, the abomination that causes desolation will be set up. The vision ends with the following words: "How blessed will be anyone who waits and arrives 1,335 days. But you go your way until the end comes. Then you will rest and rise for your reward at the end of the days." By 535 BC, Daniel rested with his fathers and was buried in Susa. Within this city, at the same time, was a Jewish district where the children, daughters, grandchildren, and granddaughters of those sent into exile live. One of them is a clan descendant of Kish, a son of Benjamin. This is the same forefather that King Shaul was descended of.